I call heaven and earth as witness today against you. So this is the King James version, which is there's a lot to digest. So I'm gonna be slow with it. I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore choose life, that before you and your descendants may live. So, as we've talked about before, heaven is a very legalistic place. And God, we see this in Deuteronomy when he says, I call heaven and earth as witness. So he's wanting everybody to know. Nobody is set aside. Everybody shall know what he is saying right now. It is a big statement. It is him giving the will to man. I have set before you life and death, blessings and cursing. So what struck out to me was the and in between all of this. There's a very strong correlation between life and death, blessing and cursing. It's a very opposite, positive, negative, light and dark. You know, it's, as we can see here, it's life and death. You have that choice for life and death. You have that choice, blessing and cursing. It is what God's giving to us in this verse. Therefore choose life, that both you and your descendants may live. So this is kind of funny. He's like, I'm going to give you the choice here, but you all really know the right answer. Choose life. I always thought that was kind of funny when I looked at this. Like he's telling you, like, hey, I'm going to give it all to you. You guys can make that decision, but choose life. You know?
Come on.
Because he's given us the answer right there. Right in this verse. He's giving us the answer to what he has given us. So, another thing I want to say about this whole free will, I looked through the Bible, and hopefully somebody can tell me from online, or any one of you could tell me if you know any better verses, but I couldn't find a solid verse that it was like, in the beginning of Genesis, God made the heavens and the earth in 7 days. All right, that's pretty simple. You know, it doesn't really give us something concrete like that about free will. We have a couple of different verses here and there that I feel like are almost pieces to the puzzle. And so that's why I'm going to jump over here to Joshua 24:15. It's a little bit longer of a one. And if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourself this day whom you will serve, whether the God which your fathers served that were on the other side of the river, or the gods of Amorites. Sorry, my apologies. And whose land you dwell. But as for me, my house, we will serve the Lord. So this is kind of just precedence to why when the Lord says choose life. This is, sorry, apologies. I'm just going to go back to the beginning of that. If it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourself. It kind of says it in there that if it seems evil to you to serve the Lord, choose for yourself. You have that choice. You could choose either or. But he's talking, in my house, we will serve the Lord. This is what I choose, and this is what's gotten me this far. This is the blessing that I have received, and it is through the Lord. So, alrighty. So that's my little spiel about the beginning into free will. And I wanted to turn to a story that basically encompasses all of free will right here. And it's the story of Jacob. And so I'm a wrestler myself. And so I always found this story really appealing. And when this guy at the Nazarene church camp started talking about it, I was like, all right, I like this. This guy's a wrestler. You know, and but hearing a lot more about the story, I started seeing a lot of myself in Jacob. Jacob was the younger brother to his Esau, who was born moments before Jacob. And we even see in the name of Jacob, it means heel grabber. He literally was grabbing Esau's heel as he was coming out first. He's like, no, get back here. I want that firstborn right. That's the reason that he wanted to be first. And he was called a heel grabber. He wanted to be the firstborn child. He wanted that firstborn rights. Back then, you got your family's name, you got the right to all their land and whatever they had. You basically got almost everything. It kind of sucks to be a second child in that day. He didn't get much. So Jacob comes out after Esau, grabbing at his heels, finally comes on out, and they grow up, and Jacob was he wasn't necessarily the hunter of the family. He kind of stayed home, cooked, and just enjoyed life a little more than Esau, who went out there. He was a hunter. He went out there, hunted for game, provided. He was very much like a man's kind of man. And so what Jacob did in order to get that birthright, because his whole life, he had that name. His name was Jacob. He was the heel grabber. He was going to keep going for it. He's going to keep on grabbing at that heel. And so what happened was he waited till Esau was coming home absolutely just starving from hunting. He brought home some game, and he was like, he said, I will sell you, I think it was a bowl of soup. Yes, it was a bowl of soup. He will make that for him and present it to him for his firstborn right. And Esau, being completely just starving, was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll do it. Just give me the soup. And so that's how Jacob gained the birthright of his brother. So after this, it caused a lot of family turmoil. A lot of turmoil within that family. Jacob just took the birthright of his older brother. I mean, back in that day, if someone just stole everything from you, it would be pretty angry too. And so it ends up sending Jacob on the run with basically everything that he had from his family, which I'm not going to read that whole part, but he had a lot. Yeah. He had a lot. He had many oxen, donkey, male and female servants. This guy had it all. And so he was running for several days away from his brother Esau and 400 men, an army. Back then, 400 men is a lot, you know. And so what he does is they come across a river running from Esau. Jacob sends his two wives. Is it two wives? Yes, it was. And his whole herd, his flock, his male and female servants, all of his belongings across this river. He's like, go on without me. You know, make sure you get to the next town. I'm going to stay behind and try and make sure that I can keep you guys safe. And so it comes to that night after he sends all of his belongings, basically just forego everything that he had gained from gaining that birthright, and he was camping. He was camping out with nothing. And this man appears. This is where it gets to, actually not to the verse yet, apologies. This man appears in the middle of the night. And it doesn't tell you who he is, what he looks like. It just says, a man. Just comes and wrestles him. Like, all right, cool. That's why I like the story, the wrestling part. But all night, I know myself, being an athlete, I would get myself completely gassed to the bone to where I felt like I couldn't even breathe. I had my hands above my head. I was laying down, just gasping for air. And I could do that in like 2 or 3 minutes if I completely just push myself. This guy wrestled all night like that with this unknown man to the point where it was beginning to get daybreak. And this is where we pick up on the verse. It's going to be Genesis 33:4. So this man, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint. He just touched this guy, ripped his hip out of shank, which I don't know if anyone's ever dislocated any joints. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's a lot of force. I dislocated my shoulder before, and I literally used all my body weight and all my momentum, just to throw it out. It was not easy. This dude just touched him. Hip came out of joint. And Jacob's still fighting here. That's crazy to me. If your hip's out of joint, you're not moving. This dude keeps on moving. He's still trying to wrestle. That heel grabber's still going for it. Yeah. And so he's grabbing onto this man that just tore his hip out with a touch. And he says, oh man, this is the man. He says, let me go, for the day breaks. But he says, I will not let you go until you bless me. So this is where I kind of started seeing like, oh, this ain't some like mystery man here. This is an angel. This is God. Like, no one can just give a blessing like that, you know. And so it's funny how Jacob knew that he was wrestling God. And he just started wrestling. Yeah. And we could tell that as soon as the dude just touched him. God could have ended the fight when he let it start. You know, you're wrestling with the king of the universe here. He just touched you, and then they tore your hip out of socket. There was no chance. You're not wrestling to win. Right. There was no odds of you winning that fight. And so it continues here. So he said to him, what is your name? He said, Jacob. And he said, your name shall no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. For you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. So I have in here that I looked up what Israel meant. And it means who prevails with God. So I feel like in the beginning, I kind of took this whole fight from a different angle. Like I thought of it as a fight, like two opposing forces. One's going to win. No, it's who prevails with God. God only fought Jacob to try to get him on that right path, the path that he had planned out for him. He's like, come on, like I'm going to wrestle you until you go on with this plan that I've laid out for you. I have set it at your feet here, and you just want to go a separate way. Again and again and again, you have tried to be Esau, but you're not Esau. You're never going to be him. I have made a life for you, not trying to be somebody else, not trying to make your own way that is not blessed. And at the end of the day, it's the path that God blesses is the only path. Or you're going to end up like Jacob. You're going to be, maybe you may get that big promotion, or maybe something may happen that you think is good in the moment. You may get that birthright. End of the day, if it's not blessed by the Lord, you're going to lose all of it. It is not his path. It is not what he wants you at. And same with that free will. You have that free will to choose. But just like if we go all the way back to Deuteronomy 30:19. When I was telling you, I thought it was funny. He wants you to go on this path. He wants you to choose life. He wants you to choose him. And so, I also want to add a bit of my own testimony because I saw so much of myself in Jacob. And I already said a little bit about myself being a wrestler. I was really into wrestling. It was kind of my whole life. I wrestled 6 days a week for a long time, and I planned on that being my life. And I was doing really well. I had a couple scholarships lined up, and that's where I wanted my life to go. Next thing you know, one of my knees goes out. I had a full knee replacement on my left side. I had to get my patellar tendon replaced. This isn't even my own tendon. It's somebody else's. I have a bar running through my leg, and the Lord really kind of tore my hip out of socket then. And just like Jacob, I was like, all right, get the surgery. I'm going back in 3 months. And I did. I went back, and I kept wrestling. And then my senior year, when I had all this riding on it, he kept letting me wrestle. That was the funny thing. He kept on letting me wrestle. This is my sophomore year. My knee happened. He kept letting me go through that until my senior year, where everything was riding on that 1 year. All I had to do was win state. That's it. I had full ride to Division I college. I was ready to go. And next thing I know, my meniscus pops out. Oh, crap. All right, let's keep on going. I'm going to keep going with this. And then my grandpa died. And I was like, all right. My grandpa wanted me to keep on going with this, so I'm going to keep going. Next thing you know, I break my hand. I broke my metacarpal in half right here, right below my pointer finger, to the point where I kept wrestling with that too. I had a cast on my arm where I'd wrap it up so it was removable. And it got to the point where they wanted to do surgery on it because it was completely broken in half. It was rotating inwards. And I was like, no, I can't do surgery. I got steak coming up. It got to the point where my finger looked like a sweet Italian sausage. I was in so much pain that night, I could not sleep. Like, I could not sleep. Cutting weight was easy because I wasn't hungry. But that's what took me out, was my hand. I was like, you know what? I need to be able to sign bills when I get older. I need to be able to write. And I was like, all right, screw it. I guess I'm not going wrestling anymore. All of this hard work, 6 days a week, over 2 to 3 hours a day, in the wrestling room, in the gym, was for nothing. That's what I felt like. And I feel like Jacob kind of felt a little bit of that with getting this birthright. And next thing you know, he sins across the river. All right, all this was for nothing. I probably won't ever see that again. Any one of the servants or whoever can just take that and go. There wasn't police back then. You can't file a lawsuit. And so, with that decision to not continue with wrestling, I went to NAU, which was the absolute best decision I've ever made in my life. Not how I thought. I didn't come out with a college degree, which I thought I was going for electrical engineering, but that didn't work out. That wasn't the Lord's plan. I ended up finding the most beautiful woman I've ever met, who is my wife now. We have a child on the way. We have a little baby on the way. And yeah, sorry you've been gone for a little bit.
It's quick.
Yeah. But yeah, it's funny. Honestly, now thinking back on it, it's just funny. Like, I thought I'd be in a D1 college wrestling somewhere. Like, I thought that was my purpose. And then next thing I thought I would be at NAU, continuing with my degree. Now, I am the most happy that I ever could have conceived possible. And I'm working at Discount Tire right now. I'm preaching on the side. You know, I have a beautiful wife and a baby on the way, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So I wanted to just open it up at the end here that if you feel like you're struggling with something in your life and you just don't have the clarity to know what God's path is for you, you have to open up your heart for the things you don't want to hear. You know, He is going to give you a path and He is going to bless it for you. Every single one of us are born with this plan He has laid out for us. And it takes a little bit of, you know, I feel like I ate a lot of my own pride. And I just set it down. I was like, all right, Lord, I'm still doing this to this day. It never stops. Just laying it down at His feet and like, all right, Lord, take my hand, lead me where you want me to go. You just have to be all right with following. So if you ever feel like you need any clarity, just let it go. Let it go and pray to Him and lay it down at His feet. All right. Well, that's what I have for today.
Amen. Amen. Praise the Lord.
Thank you.